Well, I have to say I'm very pleased to be in the next round. There were stages in that game that I felt Louisville was starting to get a little bit more of a grip of it. Not loads and loads of chances either way, but I think we saw almost exactly what we might have expected. A top USL side, probably the best USL side, at home, playing with a lot of passion against what we could class as a local rival with some history here, of course, from the USL days. Their performance was terrific. Our performance at certain times probably left a lot to be desired, but I will say, in the end, there was a lot of character and belief. And if you think about the way the Atlanta game ended up, you know, we discussed at the start of this fixture, you know, the efforts that were put into that game and the way that the guys had gone about their business. If we truly felt as though there was anything to be achieved in this competition, then, you know, we really had to show some inner belief and some character when it was going to be needed, and it certainly was tonight. Difficult to go behind, and to come back and win the game in the fashion that we did late on was very, very pleasing.
Thank you, Coach. Matt is going to give permission to those who are, or give access to those who are in Louisville with us, and then we'll continue with Tim Sullivan on the Zoom. Matt, go ahead.
Awesome. We'll start with Gentry Esses, then go to Ben Wright, then Claudio.
Gary, when you have to face a USL team in their own building, and you obviously know what it's going to mean to them to play a Major League Soccer team, how difficult was it to come up with a lineup that you felt matched the occasion, and did you plan all along to do what you did with the subs, 70th, 75th minute?
Yeah, it was very challenging, I have to say. You know, the Atlanta game, and I think Claudio asked a question at the weekend about the group and what it might look like. I don't want to take this lightly. I certainly didn't take Louisville lightly. If you look at the group that went out there, you know, still lots of experience. I think only probably Daniel Lovett slightly out of position. Other than that, you know, 6 genuine starters in the group. Obviously Aké and what he represents in our group. I thought it was a very competitive team that I put on the field, and that was because I've got a lot of respect for what this group's about. We had some incredibly challenging games against them in the USL, and I knew that there would be a lot of pride and a lot of passion that was shown out of the Louisville group. They have a core of players that are still in and around this organisation from those days that we played against them. And they have a manager in Danny Cruz who's, I think, coming on in leaps and bounds. It's very early in his coaching career. But if you look at what they're achieving in the league, and if you look at how they're playing, they've got a very definitive style. They've got a good philosophy. They're very much about the ball. They're very confident. They've got great balance to the group. And if you look at some of the youngsters that they're bringing through as well, this was always going to be an incredibly tough game. That proverbial banana skin that you run into. In fact, I couldn't think of a bigger banana skin than this one because of the quality of this group. And I have to say that, you know, the surface probably played into a more lively game. It's a big field. It's a great stadium. First time I've been here. But, you know, there's no doubt with maybe some of the events that they've had on the field, it made life just a little bit more challenging. And I think the guys needed to grow in confidence, not only on the field, but the way that it was going to play and what it was going to represent for the game. And there were times where I think it caught a couple of people off guard a little bit. But the most important thing for us is that we're in the next round. You know, you can play good football tonight, you can be the best team tonight, and you can not go through. And it's irrelevant then. Cup competition is all about progressing. And, you know, it's a very nice feeling, of course, always, that we wait on Orlando and Miami to see who we play.
Go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, Gary, I believe it was a minute 24 seconds from when they scored to when you guys equalized. What did you make of that response? And then seeing Hani score in the 89th minute, just with the schedule and the weather, how much of a relief was it to not have to go into extra time?
Yeah, look, I was disappointed, of course, about the goal, but I have to say it was in a spell of time where they looked like they were just starting to get a bit more of a grip of the game. They started to grow in confidence. They had a couple of little moments that looked like they may have taken a little bit more advantage of, and then the goal comes along. The response was terrific. I think Danny will be disappointed. They held a very high line immediately after the goal was scored, and we've still got to take advantage of it. But it was one of few opportunities that we got in behind them, and chose the right pass, and were able to obviously execute in the right fashion. But I will say, instrumental in the result that you get back on track that quickly. Otherwise, they would have probably felt very good about themselves going into the break, a goal to the good. The fact that we actually got ourselves back to level terms meant an awful lot to us as well.
Go ahead, Claudio.
Gary, you mentioned that the team at some points in the game looked, not as the way you would like them. How much of that has to do with the fact that some of the players that come in sub or being sub most times want to feel your eye, and then they tend to make more mistakes because of that?
Of course, there's no doubt about it. A couple of changes, as I've said, Daniel playing right side centre back, and the front three in general, who have all already achieved something for us in different levels of play, are a massive piece of the puzzle. If that connection's off, then it can mean that the ball's constantly coming back. You're not as creative as you want to be. There were times in the first half where Aké and Ethan were either side of the field. There was no togetherness and understanding, and that can also be, to your point, in trying to make an impression and really put themselves in a position where down the line they can be looked at as players to come in and make a difference for us. So everyone's trying to impress. I get that. There were some difficult moments, and it has to be said. The difficult moments were compounded by a good Louisville team, a very well organised Louisville team, and a good footballing Louisville team. And just to finish off on Ben's point, because I didn't answer the last bit of his question, but it plays into what we were talking about. When CJ and Hani came into the game, there was a different feel to it. It gives everyone a bit of a lift. Of course, some energy that is injected into the game. I'm looking at the clock and knowing we've got a game at the weekend, of course, having played 120 minutes against Atlanta. The goal scored in the final minute was a real relief. But we had just started to show, some more aggressive tendencies, and we got ourselves higher up the field. And I think to a large degree as well, the Louisville group had put a tremendous amount into the game, and there were one or two guys in that group that were probably, athletically not struggling, but they certainly weren't at the sharpest point in their game. Maybe what we were seeing in the early exchanges in the first hour. So we were able to take advantage of that, bringing them into the game. Hani and CJ late on was always going to be a possibility. My hope was we could get the job done before that. But the fact that they've been able to come in and make a difference, and we've not gone to extra time, is obviously a big help.
We'll swing back around, go back to Gentry here.
Yeah, Gary, you mentioned the stadium, and just how impressive was this in Louisville? This is a place that built their own soccer-specific stadium and not in MLS, and just what it says about the game in North America to see this here.
Absolutely fantastic. I've not been here. I've been looking forward to come here. I've seen a lot of their games. I still, almost, there's a piece of me that still looks at the USL an awful lot. A lot of teams that we had some tough encounters against. These were the toughest, no doubt about it. Their the way that this club has grown, they couldn't have been any better in the league when James O'Connor was in charge here. They were the standard bearer for USL. The fact that they've not only been able to develop as an organisation, they've been able to build this fantastic stadium, they're bringing young players through. There really is, it looks like a good strength to the club and to the community and the game in this region. It's always a challenge playing against this group. It was then, it is now, and I'm sure that will continue. And I think that really is testimony, certainly to the people that I know that are in and around the club. They're real competitors. James was. I know he's connected to the club now. Danny was the biggest competitor in MLS when he was a player, and you can see some of those qualities out of his players. And obviously the organisation have taken advantage of the strength that they have in this community and the support that they had at Slugger Field. As I said, the only disappointment was the field. And I know it's been in great shape because I've been watching games. So I was a little bit taken by surprise when I got here. But it is what it is. If you're going to do well, if it's in a cup competition or the league, you've got to be able to adapt. You've got to be able to compete when asked. And you've got to be able to show those finer details of quality when they come along. And tonight, we were able to do that.
Thank you, Coach. We'll go to Christina on the Zoom.
We'll begin with Team Sullivan, but before we head there, a reminder for everybody: if you have questions for Coach, just raise your hand so we can invite you over to ask your question. Team, go ahead.
Hey, Gary, you've mentioned a bunch of guys who stepped up in roles that are maybe not the ones that they're used to. I think probably the most interesting one is Elliot. What went into the decision to bring him back for this game, and obviously the first minutes played for anybody between the pipes other than Joe for the club? How did you feel?
Yeah, of course. I've probably, not done him true justice by not mentioning him before now. I felt Joe, needed a bit of mental space to gather himself. He's been, as we all know, absolutely magnificent for us. I still wouldn't want anyone else as our number one goalkeeper, but I felt tonight it was probably a good time to give him a moment just to recover, not have to keep game after game. Yes, there was a mistake at the weekend. And yes, there was a mistake against Montreal, but did they play into it? Maybe a small amount, but I think what it does is it just says, look, I've played every minute of every game since the club's inauguration, and he probably needed this moment, and Elliot's been out on loan. It was part of a plan to get him some football. We have high hopes for what he's going to achieve for the club. I felt as though someone match fit, who's seen some action, was going to be the better bet. That's tough on Brian Meredith, but I had to make a choice. And Elliot will, of course, known this stadium. He's been navigating this league for the last year or 18 months. So it seemed the most natural move to make. But what I will say is it's given Elliot a wonderful opportunity. He's been extremely reliable tonight. Not for 1 minute do I believe Brian Meredith is out of the equation, like Brian an awful lot. What it means is we've got some competition, and every position needs competition. So delighted for Elliot. First game for us, first win. The only thing he's obviously missing was a clean sheet, but I'm sure that will come in the future.
Tim, go ahead with your follow-up.
This is the last one for me too, Chris, so thank you. Gary, it seemed like especially early when Ethan and Aké were out there, you guys really wanted to go over the top of them a little bit. And then once you guys, I guess, settled in a little bit, you had a little bit more connection through the midfield. How did you feel the game evolved over the course of maybe kind of changing up what you guys were going for as your main tactic?
Well, look, I genuinely felt that we could maybe hurt them in down the side of their centre backs. I'm not looking for route one back to front. I'm looking for, some cultured connection that's going to draw fullbacks out, and for us to really secure the ball in a quality fashion, where we can choose to go to goal or we can choose to manage and build pressure. It didn't quite work out that way. There were one or two moments that I don't think we took full advantage of. But to your point, as the game started to slow down a little bit, there were more and more areas that we could start to look at through the midfield. I still think there's more to come out of those guys up top, and I want to be thoughtful about the fact that they're not getting loads of minutes. It is difficult. To a question in here, they are trying to impress, and there's nothing wrong with the genuine nature of their play, but they need more action, and that action will probably help them, with their decision making, and of course their execution when it comes along. But no problem with the way they went about their business in terms of output, but maybe the lack of understanding against a well-drilled group left us a little bit short at times going forward.
Hey, Coach, one more question before we let you go. We'll use this opportunity to preview Colorado. How do you transition into that game now?
Well, I mean, as you can tell, some of the decisions on the group were with the weekend in mind. I'm obviously delighted that we've been able to take this game and keep our confidence and cup run intact. That can only be good for the group. And it's a quick turnaround again. We play Saturday, but I think we're in a better place than we were when we went to Houston. There were some challenges with that game in a very similar situation. I think this the whole picture of this setup was different. What we needed, how we were going to go about our business, maybe one or two little lessons learned, and certainly players that were ready for this more so than they possibly were in the Atlanta game, which is great news as well. So we go to Colorado in good shape, in good health, and looking forward to a real challenge and somewhere I've not been for 11 or 12 years.
Primero me siento feliz por el gol y el gol nos dio también la victoria, ¿no? Y fue un partido un poco complicado. Así voy despacito para que...
Perfecto.
Okay.
Perfecto.
Fue un partido complicado porque el rival jugaba en casa y dieron todo también, pero al final ganamos, ¿no? Y fue alegría para mí hacer el gol y la victoria también.
Yeah, okay, you scored a minute and 24 seconds after they did. Just how important was it to respond quickly?
No respondí solo porque somos un grupo y sin lo demás no puedo hacer este gol. Entonces fue un gol del equipo y tenemos esa mentalidad de siempre seguir adelante aunque estamos abajo 1-0, pero el problema es siempre ganar, ¿no? Así que hemos poniendo las pilas y ir adelante para realizar el gol.
Aké, los delanteros viven del gol. Imagino que para ti ha sido muy importante esto. Pero viendo hacia el futuro y lo que viene con el equipo en ambas competiciones, ¿qué diferencia hace para ti, en lo personal, haber anotado este gol hoy, tanto en la MLS como en la Copa?
Yo creo que no hay diferencia, ¿no? Como has dicho, un delantero vive de los goles y aunque sea un partido de Copa o MLS en la liga, aunque sea un partido amistoso, cuando haces tu gol, estás feliz. Así que siempre vamos a intentar hacer esos goles y seguir adelante por el equipo, dar todo por el equipo y ganar.
Aké, you were limping a little late in the first half, but you stayed in the game. Were you okay health-wise, and was that just like a cramp?
Sí, fue un calambre porque el partido estaba un poco caliente y corrimos mucho, pero después del primer tiempo hemos recuperado, ¿no? Pero no es una lesión como grave, es solo un calambre.